Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. This story takes place about 5 years ago. In the late 2010s, my friends and I would frequently visit a small pool hall in a neighboring town. You could rent a table by the hour or play per game. We'd shoot some pool, catch whatever sports were on TV, and have casual conversations. Everything was smooth sailing for about 3 months until one night changed it all. A guy we'd never seen before, let's call him Derek, walked in and took our usual spot at the pool table. No big deal, we thought. We were all chatting anyway. After about 20 minutes, my friend Jake spoke up. "Hey man, mind if we play next game?" Derek barely looked at us, mumbling, "Yeah, whatever." Needless to say, we didn't get to play the next game, so I stepped up, trying to be polite. "Excuse me, we'd really like to play next if that's all right." A woman nearby chimed in. "I'd like the game after them if possible." Derek acted like we were invisible, completely ignoring both of us. More time passed, and suddenly Derek left the table. We saw our chance and quickly moved to claim it. We put our quarters in and the balls rolled out, except for the green 6 ball. Derek had taken it to the bathroom with him. "You've got to be kidding me," Jake groaned. At this point, it was getting ridiculous. We went to find the manager, a guy named Mike. He looked at his watch and sighed. "Look, it's already 11:30 and we're calling last call soon. I don't want to cause a scene by kicking him out now. How about I get you another ball so you can play?" We reluctantly agreed, and Mike found us a replacement ball. Derek emerged from the bathroom, a smug look on his face. He knew we'd figured out what he'd done. With a smirk, he sauntered out to the patio, beer in one hand and the green ball in the other. "What a jerk," my friend Sarah muttered. A few minutes later, Derek came back inside and casually tossed the ball onto our table, scattering the balls we'd carefully set up. "Oops," he said with a grin, heading to the bar just in time for last call. As we watched him order another drink, my friend Tom leaned in close. "Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we follow him home and each call the highway patrol to report a suspected drunk driver?" We exchanged looks, considering the plan. 3 out of 4 of us agreed, with Sarah opting out. "You guys are crazy," she said, shaking her head. "But be careful." When Derek finally left, we used our smartphones to coordinate several calls to the police. We provided details like his license plate, vehicle make, model, and color. We even mentioned that the car nearly hit another vehicle, was swerving between lines and driving erratically. It was a quick plan. We figured he lived nearby since this was a neighborhood joint, so our window of opportunity was small. Tom, who didn't make a call, tailed Derek at a safe distance. About 10 minutes later, he called us, his voice filled with excitement. "Guys, you won't believe it. A cop just pulled up between me and Derek. They've got their lights on." The local police blotter that week included an entry about a man arrested after multiple calls reporting erratic driving. He wasn't arrested for DWI as we'd expected, but instead for driving on a suspended license. "Karma's a funny thing," Jake said when we heard the news. "Maybe next time he'll think twice before being such a jerk." The next one is an entitled people story. I never thought I'd end up in a legal battle over my grandfather's farm, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. My name's John, and I inherited my grandpa's 100-acre farm when he passed away last year. It had been in our family for generations, and I was determined to keep it that way. The farm was on the outskirts of a small town that was slowly being swallowed up by suburban sprawl. Most of the surrounding farmland had already been sold off to developers, but our place stood firm like an island in a sea of cookie-cutter houses. I didn't live on the farm full-time. I had a job in the city about an hour away, so I'd come out on weekends to maintain the place and enjoy some peace and quiet. There was an old farmhouse on the property that my grandpa had lived in, but it needed a lot of work. I was planning to fix it up eventually, but for now, it sat empty. One Saturday morning, I drove out to the farm as usual. As I pulled up the long driveway, I noticed something odd. There was a flashy red sports car parked in front of the farmhouse. I frowned, wondering who it could be. I hadn't given anyone permission to be on the property. As I got closer, I saw a woman in a business suit standing on the porch, talking animatedly to a young couple. She was gesturing at the house and property with a big smile on her face. My stomach dropped as I realized what was happening. She was trying to sell my farm. I parked my truck and strode over, my blood beginning to boil. As I approached, I could hear the woman's sales pitch. And as you can see, this charming farmhouse comes with 100 acres of pristine land, perfect for development. You could easily subdivide this into 200 home lots and make a fortune. The couple looked impressed, nodding along. I cleared my throat loudly, and all 3 of them turned to look at me. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her smile faltering slightly. "Actually, I think I'm the one who should be asking that," I replied coolly. "Considering this is my property you're trying to sell." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? This property was listed for sale by the owner last week. I'm Karen Johnson with Supercell's Realty, and I have the exclusive listing." I crossed my arms. "Well, Karen, I can assure you that I'm the owner and I certainly didn't list this property for sale, so I think you'd better explain what's going on here." Karen's smile had completely disappeared now. She turned to the young couple and said, "I'm so sorry, but it seems there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Would you mind giving us a few minutes?" The couple looked confused, but nodded, and walked back to their car. Karen rounded on me as soon as they were out of earshot. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but I have a signed contract with the owner of this property. If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police and have you arrested for trespassing." I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. "Go ahead and call them," I shot back. "I've got the deed to this property in my name. I inherited it from my grandfather last year." Karen's face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Well, clearly there's been some mistake. The owner I dealt with was an elderly gentleman. He must have forgotten he'd already sold the property." I felt a flash of anger. "That elderly gentleman was my grandfather and he passed away last year. He would never have sold this farm. Now, I want to know exactly what's going on here, or I'll be the one calling the police." Karen's demeanor suddenly changed. She plastered on a fake smile and said, Now, there's no need for that. I'm sure we can sort this out like adults. Why don't you show me this deed you claim to have?" I wasn't falling for her act. "I don't have it with me, but I can have my lawyer send you a copy on Monday. In the meantime, I want to see this contract you say you have." Karen hesitated, then reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder. She handed me a document, which I quickly scanned. Sure enough, it appeared to be a contract for the sale of the farm, complete with my grandfather's signature at the bottom, but something didn't look right. "This signature is forged," I said flatly. "My grandfather's handwriting was shaky in his later years due to arthritis. This is way too neat." Karen snatched the paper back. "Are you accusing me of forgery? That's a very serious allegation, young man. I could sue you for defamation." I stood my ground. "I'm not accusing you of anything yet, but I am telling you that this sale is not valid. I own this property and it's not for sale. Now I want you off my land immediately." Karen's face twisted with rage. "You haven't heard the last of this," she snarled. "I have a valid contract, and I'll see you in court if I have to." She stormed off to her car, the young couple looking on in confusion. As she peeled out of the driveway, I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. This was going to require some legal help. Over the next few weeks, I learned the full extent of Karen's scheme. It turned out she had been going around to various properties owned by elderly people in the area, posing as a property assessor from the county. She would chat with the owners, gathering information about their properties and families. Then she would forge sale contracts using the information she'd collected. My grandfather had apparently been one of her victims shortly before he passed away. She must not have realized he had died and left the property to me. When I hired a lawyer and threatened to press charges, Karen tried to backpedal, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but we had her dead to rights. In the end, Karen lost her real estate license and faced multiple fraud charges. The young couple she had been showing my property to came forward as witnesses, along with several other people she had scammed or attempted to scam. As satisfying as it was to see Karen face justice, I was still angry about how she had taken advantage of my grandfather and other vulnerable elderly people. I decided to take action to prevent this from happening to others in the future. I used some of the money from my grandfather's estate to start a community outreach program. We educated elderly residents about common scams and provided free legal advice to help protect their properties. The program was a hit, and soon other communities in the area were asking us to expand. As for the farm, I decided to honor my grandfather's memory by keeping it intact. Instead of selling to developers, I partnered with a local agricultural college to turn it into a teaching farm. Students could come to learn about sustainable farming practices, and we donated much of the produce to local food banks. Every time I drive up that long driveway now, I think about how close I came to losing this special place, and I smile, knowing that my grandfather would be proud of how things turned out. Sometimes standing up to entitled people like Karen can lead to positive changes you never expected. It just goes to show that doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, is always worth it in the end. The next one is a petty revenge story. So 2 years ago, I spent a year abroad in a boarding school at England. It was quite an enjoyable experience, except for one small detail. Some of my schoolmates were absolute a-holes which just enjoyed making people suffer for the sake of it. One of them was my roommate, and although he did not try to piss me off directly, he did to one of my friends. This guy was from Hong Kong, therefore his English level was not great. That mixed with the fact that he was a bit weak and skinny made him the ideal target for these kind of people. Once, they took someone's shampoo and poured a little bit over his bed to make the rest of the boarding house think it was cum. It did not work, but the fact that there was an attempt to make him go through that was enough to make us both create a revenge. See, both the bully and I went to drama lessons, and some days after the incident, the teacher told us that we had a trip to London to watch The Lion King as part of our drama course. We had also been informed that we would be arriving pretty late, 3 a.m. minimum. I saved the date, and just after we left for the trip, I said, I needs to go to the bathroom. I went to his room, took his shampoo and poured it all over his bed and his sheets and his pillows. I left the whole room as messy as I could and left. The next day he had all his pajamas plus uniform filled with shampoo. The head of house opened an investigation to see who was responsible. But I guess he was not very good at it because the first meeting he made started by telling me that I did not need to be there as he certainly knew it was not me. This was supported on the fact that I was supposedly at London and that I was one of the best students of the school. I ended up having the most school merits by quite a margin. Anyway, the day I left the school to go back to Spain, I opened my phone to write a message on the house group chat. I said, "Remember the shampoo incident?" Someone answered, "Yes, why?" I was the one who did it. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So this happened years ago. We're talking early 2000s, in South Africa. I was in grade 8 and was very good at English and was always my English teacher's favorite. My 7th grade teacher did, however, pull me aside after class once and told me that I was extremely smart but lazy and he wanted me to work on the laziness, as he knew I would do great if I just put some work into my studies. I have sensory processing disorder and can easily get distracted, and also, yes, I am a lazy person. Kind of why I am great at my job as a consultant in finding more accurate, faster ways to increase the productivity of my clients, working smarter, not harder. Anyway, getting back to the story, see, SPD is kicking in already. So when I got to high school, English was the least of my worries. I spent a lot of time on math and other subjects, as I really struggled with math and would skip easy work, things I already knew, to focus on things I didn't understand. The kind of English we were taught in grade 8 was, to me, supposed to be taught in grade 2. Like seriously, I am, is, are, going, to school. Choose the correct words in brackets. My teacher would make me stand up in front of the class every day for not doing my homework and proceed to tell me how stupid I am for not caring about my future by not doing my homework and blah blah blah, every day. Our June exams were coming up and she went on a rant again about how stupid I am and said there's no need for me to even try studying for the exam since it will all go over my head anyway. This is where the MC comes in. I actually started to believe it. So when June exams came, I complied and just didn't study and wrote the exam unprepared. I really just couldn't care anymore. And then came the winter holidays. We have summer Christmases. When the winter holidays came to an end and my English class started again, I barely had a chance to take my seat when I heard the all-too-familiar, "OP, stand up." I immediately asked my classmates whether we had any homework, but they kept quiet. My teacher held up a piece of paper and asked me angrily, "How did you do this?" "What, ma'am?" I asked. She held up the paper and asked, "How did you get 90% on your exam paper?" I shrugged and said, "I don't know, ma'am. I am stupid." She kicked me out of her class, and I got a wonderful teacher who actually referred to me as either a walking dictionary or a walking encyclopedia, as I would often answer questions when kids asked what something was that we were reading about and the teacher couldn't answer, or I would proofread and fix all of my classmates' essays before I even wrote mine. When I matriculated, I got a distinction in English, and my little brother found himself in that first teacher's class. When she saw his surname, it sounded familiar to her and she asked whether he had a sibling. My brother said yes, and she got a distinction in English when she matriculated. The teacher told him to follow in my footsteps. Ha 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 ha. But in the end, my mom was working as an admin at a physio and that teacher was there. My mom saw the surname and confronted the teacher, and she felt so terrible she asked me for forgiveness. There was a kid in her class that she also kept picking on, and after she heard my story, she started to actually get to know the kid a bit better and found out he was only acting out because he was being abused at home. She changed her whole attitude because she saw the consequences of her actions, and I was able to completely forgive her. But I just had to share it here, as I think it was hilarious. The next one is an entitled people's story. Celebrating 2 years, no contact with an ex-friend of mine, Emma, and figured this would be a good sub to share the story of our friendship. Emma was a victim of bullying, so I became her only school friend. Her parents love-bombed me, buying me lots of gifts, calling me Emma's savior, and lecturing me about needing to always support her because she was bullied, etc. I didn't know better at 13YO that I was essentially being groomed to be Emma's carer. I also met Kate, who was Emma's childhood friend, and we became a cute group of 3. But by college, I realized Emma was falling far behind in maturity. Her mom would ask me to help her poor Emma with basic things like catch the bus with her or drive her, even though she could drive. Even when it was inconvenient for me, like when I moved out of home and lived an hour away, her mom would still try guilt me. It became a one-sided friendship, so to help Emma grow up, I started teaching her and asking her to do things on her own. But the problems grew. The travel story. We traveled with my new college group, and they politely asked me not to invite Emma again. We'd nearly miss flights and other deadlines because she'd wander off to call her mom and get lost. She'd lose things, get scammed, or randomly start unpacking her luggage in public. She always needed help, and it was stressing me out 24/7. She never pitched in for the Ubers or food. The hotel mixed up the rooms. 3 people stuck with a single bed, and Emma got 2 king beds to herself. And she refused to swap, which caused further drama. She even interrupted and tried to third wheel my one date night with my SO. She had been with us every other meal, leaving endless missed calls, pestering for our location and wanting me to pay for her Uber to meet us. I cried many times that trip, and my SO admitted he dislikes how Emma treats me. By the end of the trip, Emma was still oblivious, insisting my stress was caused by being too uptight. Her birthday. For her 25th birthday, she invites me and Kate to a dinner, but last minute books a 5-star hotel room to stay overnight and asks us each to pay. I decline, saying I already have plans before the dinner and the day after. Kate DMs me privately saying, "This is really important to Emma, it'll mean a lot if we did the hotel. Just pay and we'll do things differently next time." So I gave in and paid. During dinner, Emma is unimpressed by my gift that's just a Chanel lipstick. And when it was time to pay the bill, Emma says, "You guys pay between the 2 of you, I'm the birthday girl." Annoyed, I say we should have discussed this beforehand, and they both turned on me like, "You should know the birthday girl never pays." While they went to other bars, I faked feeling sick and went back to the hotel room, calling other friends and my SO for support. That's when I decided to stop being friends. I left first thing in the morning for another event, upsetting both Emma and Kate because they expected me to drive them home. My birthday, in the end I hadn't spoken to them for months, but they eventually reached out wanting to celebrate my birthday. The event went surprisingly well until the bill. I don't drink, but they went through 2 bottles of wine and cocktails. Emma wanted me to pay. "You invited us out, you're the birthday girl treating us to a night out." Hypocrite. And they're the ones who asked me out. We eventually agreed to pay food 3 ways and they pay for their own drinks. But Kate's card declined and Emma never pays, so she forgot her PIN. I ended up paying. Kate transferred me immediately, but Emma didn't. And so began the final chapter. For weeks, Emma kept dodging my questions to pay me back for dinner and some concert tickets she also owed. I even sent my bank details again and started giving deadlines like, "Please have this done by tomorrow." Her responses would be like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" or just leaving me on red. The audacity. I eventually called Emma asking why she can't pay me back. She admits she doesn't know how to transfer money. We walked through it together, but she never makes the payment. I chased her up again on text and I'm left on red. Ghosted. I asked Kate for help and she said, "That's weird, she always pays me back." That hurt to hear. I chased up Emma again a few days later, left on read again. I had enough. I sent her both concert tickets and told her to go with her sister because I'm not doing this anymore. Emma immediately pays me. It took almost 2 months and threats. She made all these excuses. "I'm tired. I don't check my phone. You don't know how hard it is to be a receptionist. I'm a lawyer. You expect so much from me. This outburst has come out of nowhere. I can't believe you're punishing me," etc. I sent her a long text about everything I had bottled up, including the travel story, her birthday, my birthday, being taken for granted, etc., and then I asked for space. Kate calls me angrily and demands I apologize for hurting Emma's feelings. I said, no, I'm not apologizing for this and I'd like for both to not contact me. A few days later, Emma sends me this big text. She apologizes, but then accuses me of being inconsiderate, controlling, and impatient. She justifies never making an effort by saying she's a guest to events and trips away, while I'm apparently in charge. She then says this is all my fault because I should have been clearer and basically nag her more to make an effort, plan, pay, etc., and that I should apologize for hurting her and causing drama. She ends her text passive-aggressively with, since you're so hung up about this and need me to make more effort or whatever, I'll plan the next thing. Let's do tomorrow. Where do you want to go? I'll book. Instead, I asked for a month of no contact, and she left me on read. A month passes, and I get another angry text from her. It's been a month plus 1 day now, why haven't you reached out? I said I'll book this time. Stop hiding, we need to meet up and fight it out. I declined and said the break helped me realize I'm happier keeping our distance for now, and I wish her well. Her and her family all immediately blocked me on social media, and that was it. Obviously, I'm well aware of the mistakes I made. My boundaries were not strong enough. I fell for the love bombing and shouldn't have felt so guilty saying no. But now I know and never again. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.